everyone from sleazy men won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. We're talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of the DragonsYall recap podcast show, all of the good things. We're back because look, we've got another episode that we need to talk about, and I've got Angelica and Ryan here to dive into episode 6 of House of the Dragon. Thank you guys for coming back and having this discussion.
Yeah. Fun as always. It was a good episode, so hopefully people stop complaining about how slow the show is. I don't.
Let's talk about that because we always like to talk about all of the from people on social media. And I will say that was one of the big things that I noticed too, was people thought last week's episode was a filler episode. And I was like, there was a lot of really great moments that we saw in episode 5. We saw, you know, what's happening with, you know, you called it the reaping, the sowing, and you can go ahead and differentiate that. But you know, the planting of the dragon seeds, right? That storyline getting ready to be introduced into the House of the Dragon universe. Then the storyline with Diana and how she is now being recruited by the Blacks and where that takes place. Aemond and him taking over as the King Regent. I mean, there's a lot of really great moments in episode 5. So I don't see how this was filler. And then also the
Jason Baela being MVPs.
I mean, Baela having like one of the best, you know, lines of the entire series by far. The series. And then this great, we get to see the seeds planted of the small folk and how their reaction to what is happening in King's Landing right now, and how that is going to affect them in future episodes to come. So people are going to look at episode 5 when things really pop off and go back and see all of the events that have taken place. So don't think that this is filler. Like this was a really good episode in my opinion. So, but what was your opinions on episode 5 or other people's opinions?
Or five. Sorry, I'm in recap mode. I will say this much: Game of Thrones was a sprawling, epic type show, right? With multiple characters, multiple storylines, multiple locations across 2 continents. So there was so much for the audience to absorb. Whereas House of the Dragon is a lot more insulated. The conflict is really between 2 houses. And honestly, the first season, everybody was at the Red Keep, right? Now they're between, you know, the Red Keep and Dragonstone. So to them, I think, because it's just, you don't have as much to go off of, people are calling it boring. But I will add that the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, season 1 had 0 battles. Season 2 had 1 battle on the last or penultimate episode of the season. So you mostly see people talking in elegant rooms. So I don't quite understand the issue with them saying the pacing is slow for for House of the Dragon. I just feel like, did y'all even watch the original series? Did y'all forget? And then those same people that are claiming it's too slow complained about season 8 of Game of Thrones, saying it was too fast. They rushed it. So you just can't please anybody. So that's my soapbox I'm getting off of it. I'll turn it over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, you just can't win for losing. Like, people gonna be like, if they had too many dragon fights, they'll be like, well, I don't understand what the plot is and why did they have to do da 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 da. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, right now you really have to pay attention to the dialogue. You got to pay attention to what's going on around, because like both of you've been saying, they're dropping hints. So if you're not taking notes, if you're not paying attention to the little things, you get to the end and you're like, oh, well, did they set that up? Yeah, they did, because nobody was looking for, like, you know, the fights and all that kind of stuff, because it's like very dialogue heavy, which I kind of enjoy. Like, I think it's a unique talent, the way these writers have come together for these shows And they're really throwing things out there that are making, like, it's complimenting the actors, it's complimenting the scenery, and they really get to play with each other that I don't think we got to do in the first season. So I think they really heightened it, you know, going into season 2, just being so dialogue heavy. But y'all know we got like two more episodes. Y'all know it's getting ready to turn up. So people just gotta sit with it for a little bit.
They gotta sit with it for a little bit. And also, I noticed there's just a lot of recency bias out there. And like Angelica said, people just got to really go back and watch Game of Thrones and remember those 2 seasons were a lot more slower than the pacing of season 1 of House of the Dragon is, and currently the pacing of season 2 of House of the Dragon. And like even now, people are saying that House of the Dragon is a better show than Game of Thrones. Slow your roll. Slow your roll, because I don't think we're there yet. Because we haven't had a red wedding moment. We haven't had a Battle of the Bastards moment. So until we have those big tentpole moments in House of the Dragon, we can make that comparison. But I think it's too soon to say that, you know, House of the Dragon is better than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is still a better show. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think even Ryan Condal was like, "Yeah, we're honored to be counted amongst Game of Thrones." He
was very humble when I made that comparison interviewing him. So
it's a tough job to kind of compete with Game of Thrones. So I think they trying to match and do what they can kind of do. But yeah, they got a little. They're still baby stages.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what, hopefully it'll get to that point where we can make that comparison and say that it is a better show, because those last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, y'all might be in competition, you know, like if House of the Dragon keeps their game up, you could probably arguably say that it is a better show than Game of Thrones. But yeah, we just haven't had those tentpole moments yet to where you could say it's better.
Agreed. All right.
All right.
Well, yeah, I think we covered last week, so let's get into this week's episode. So we actually open with Jason Lannister, who's played by the same actor that plays Tywin Jefferson Davis. So unlike the Cargill twins, this is an actor playing twins. And he's arriving with his army at the Golden Tooth, which is the seat of House Lefford, which is located in the Westerlands. So, you know, Jason is very arrogant. He very much gives off Lannister vibes, unlike his brother Tywin. And he advises the Leffords to send a raven to King's Landing, instructing his brother Tywin to send Aemond with Vhagar, basically, and then they'll be ready to march to Harrenhal. So he wants an escort. He wants a dragon escort, right? It's not good enough that he has this huge army. When Aemond gets this news, he's pretty much disgusted. Like, pretty much, how dare you order me? Like, how dare you try to summon me? And he's irritated the Lannister army is taking too long to acquire Harrenhal. So Aemond ends up pivoting and proposing an alliance with the Triarchy to weaken Corlys's blockade of the Gullet. So if you remember the Triarchy from season 1, they were like the main antagonists in the first couple episodes. They were fighting against, you know, the forces of King's Landing, or Westeros, I should say, on the Stepstones. So Aemond basically aligning with the enemy says a lot. And, you know, it could have been on his itinerary, you know, for a while, as far as one of the things. Sorry, guys, I lost my...
All good.
Pause for editing. All right. So it could have been on, you know, his itinerary this whole time to align themselves with the Triarchy. And, you know, Jamie had pointed out, you know, in some of our note taking that this kind of foreshadows a face-off between Aemond and Daemon, because at some point they're going to take this grand army and take Harrenhal for themselves, which is obviously in the possession of Daemon Targaryen. Later, actually directly after the Green Council meets, Aemond actually dismisses his own mother from her seat on the Green Council, and she protests. You know, she says, once again, I've served Viserys during the last years of his reign. And Aemond asserts that, you know, she's no longer needed. She can now focus on more domestic pursuits. And he kind of like patronizes her. He puts his hand on her face and kind of says like, thanks, Mom, but no thanks, and leaves as this like tear rolls down her face. So we see like the demise of Alicent Hightower, how she's gone from this top position of power she ruled at one point as regent to now she doesn't have a seat on the council. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on those first couple scenes.
That image like perfectly captures just like how she slowly just like, it's like a decline on like what she has power of, you know, what she can possess, you know, at this table. I don't know. It was just sad because we all know like Aemon got plans on top of plans. He been watching, he been listening, and Alicent is not getting ready to make a dent at this point. Like if she, you know, if it wasn't done before now, it's not getting ready to happen now. Like we know Aemon has zero respect. He's like, well, maybe you want to go back to doing domestic work. Like he has zero respect for his mom. You know, maybe partly because when he was growing up, maybe he thought she should have did more, you know, about his eye or something, you know, like maybe all that's coming back. I don't know. But we know Alicent is like her slumped over in that chair. It's just like utter defeat. And you just like, I don't know if there's going to be, if she has any more alliances left, if she can make some more in these next couple episodes, if anybody comes back. But it just looks like she's just in the corner by herself, you know, like maybe hoping Aegon comes back. It's just what they made her look like this entire episode, like hoping she gets a lifeline somewhere. And just a little bit on the gold tooth moment. I mean, I just love being in these different locations. We get a little bit more at the Lannisters. I always got to keep that arrogance going. So we see that doesn't change with generations. So yeah, I just thought that scene change up was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jamie?
Yeah, quick correction. You had said Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Hall is his name.
Jefferson Hall. Who is Jefferson Davis? It's Jefferson Hall. Sorry,
Jefferson. But yeah, it's piggybacking off of what you said, Ryan, with the arrogance of it all. I did love that scene with Jason Lannister where I don't think we got the name of the Lefford soldier that he was speaking to, but he was like, we've got 500 men. And then he's like, well, we've got 1,000 men.
And twice as many archers.
And twice as many. Like, bruh, you know, we're not impressed. But I just thought that again, that speaks to, again, his sort of arrogance of it all, his pompous attitude. So that was a fun scene to watch. And then, man, that scene crushed me with Aemon and his mom, Alicent. I mean, again, I know people hate Alicent, and I don't. I'm just starting to feel more sorry for her. I feel just really bad for her because of these things that are happening. And I know that this is a mess of her own making, that all of these circumstances have led to decisions that she has crafted, and that this is a web that she has created that has led to this point. But I just can't help but feel sorry for the girl. And maybe a lot of that has to do with the patriarchy of it all. But the fact that Aemon was like, sorry, girl, you got to go. Like, that's your mama, dude. Like, the fact that you did that was just so cold-hearted. It was just really cold-hearted. And when she reached out and caressed his chin like that, it wasn't enough. You know, I think that was a moment where she was trying to be a mother to him, and it was almost like for him, it was like, it's too late, you know? And it was kind of sad. It was really sad. So yeah, she has really lost all of her power at this point. She has completely lost her power, and she's been fully domesticated at this point. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but yeah, I feel bad. And I know people are cheering and they're like, yeah, she deserves it. But I come back with a different, attitude about it. It's just more like sympathy. So
it sucks to suck, I say. But no, someone had sorry.
You're like, oh well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. No, someone did say, they tweeted out last week, you know, as a woman, I feel bad for Allison, but as a fan of the show, like F her. So I think that's kind of where you are with it, Jane.
Yeah. Someone on Thread said something similar, and I agree with that. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, we're good there. I'm not mad at you for we're 3 personalities. We can't all always agree on everything. So I think it's great that you're just like, I kind of feel bad for her, and I'm just like, I don't. You know, all good.
And you read the book, so you know Allison in a different context than like us that are more familiar with the TV Allison does, because she's far more sinister and far more evil than the Olivia Cook version of Allison. So you certainly don't have any sort of sympathy for her, knowing, you know, the real Allison, we should say.
Right.
So
yeah. Olivia has brought a softness and, like you said, sympathy and empathy to the role. And the funny thing is, Fire and Blood is strongly skewed and biased towards the Greens. So the fact that those are her people and they were putting her in such a bad light tells you how bad Allison really is. But yes, Olivia, I feel for her. I just still don't. I'm just like, oh well, you did it to yourself. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get over to Dragonstone. So we're at the Black Council, and Rhaenyra is proposing her plan to acquire more dragon riders. She summons Sir Steffan Darkland and proposes he attempts to bond one of the dragons, either Vermithor or Silverring, maybe even Sea Smoke, as he is of noble blood, and she was able to trace his ancestry. It turns out he has like a great Targaryen grandmother. So she warns him that in order to claim a dragon, he runs the risk of losing his life. And Sir Steffan, you know, he is clearly a true Queen's Guard, and he pledges his loyalty to Rhaenyra and accepts her request. So he is willing to put up or shut up, essentially. That is a short scene. Obviously, we go deeper into Sir Steffan's journey. Any comments on that?
Would you guys have like tried it? Like, would you guys have been scared to try it? Because she was like, I like when she's like, hey, I'm giving you a choice. And he's like, this is my great honor. Like, knowing that something like bad would happen, would you guys been like, yeah, it's a dragon I can potentially like get around on?
I would like, yeah.
I guess I'm like
honorable. Yeah, like I would like to think I'm like a Bela type, like, oh yeah, but I feel like the Targaryens themselves are more comfortable with it because that is like they're inherited. They grew up with dragons in their bedsides. They're well aware of the risk and understand that likely they will claim a dragon. But yeah, if I was some random with like a great grandmother that was part-time, I'm gonna have to pass.
Was it me, or did he look a little surprised in his expression that he had Targaryen heritage? Like he didn't seem like he didn't seem like he was very privy to that information when she disclosed that to him. His expression, I don't know. He seemed like he was a little surprised. Like, oh really? I got Targaryen blood in me? Oh okay.
Yeah,
I'll do this.
Yeah, so, he went deep into his 23andMe results on that one.
Yeah. Ancestry.com and was like, oh, you got Targaryen blood. And he was like, oh, for real? Okay, I'll do this. So yeah. I mean, it couldn't be me. I really thought that scene was a cool scene of him to, you know, definitely go for that whole ride or die mentality. Definitely wouldn't be me, but you know, that role of being a Queen's Guard, in this case it's Queen's Guard, King's Guard, that role in and of itself, that's what you sign up to do. So it's expected of you. So it doesn't shock me that he, you know, took on this, decided to go with this with no question.
Yeah. Because I feel like if he said no, it would be dishonorable. Like he would not be as respected if he was like, "Oh no, I'm good." Like then if I'm like, "Oh,
nah, I'm good." Bye.
Yeah, Sir Steffan the punk. So he kind of had no choice.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, we'll see how that goes for him. So we are yet inside another dream, and this was another big complaint from the fan base. They're like, we are so tired of Damon and his dreams and being in this horror story. When is he going to leave Harrenhal? But alas, it's important. There's a reason. And I know I have said it before, Alice Rivers is very important as far as her role in this war, not just with Damon, but with other characters. So that could be a reason why they focus a lot on Harrenhal. So, and yet another one of these fever dreams, clearly at this point influenced by Alice Rivers. Damon encounters his late brother Viserys, and it is a welcome cameo of Paddy Considine. We have not seen him since last season, and I love that they featured the younger version of him, the healthy version of him.
Not the Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, he got a full head of hair. He looking good. So Viserys is sitting on the Iron Throne. So obviously Damon's in the throne room. And he asked Damon, like, if he truly called his son, who died in season 1, heir for the day. He then orders Damon to return to Runestone with his lady wife, which is essentially rehashing the events of the first season. Damon actually says, like, you still mad? I'm confused on why you're still upset about this. So, you know, Damon isn't the remorseful type, but he's not about to be questioned by his brother or berated. So he is desperate to get out of there. So he starts banging his hands against the throne room doors. And we see a shot of Viserys taking off his crown, which symbolizes, you know, the heavy burden of ruling. So the doors of the throne room open, and it's Sir Simon on the other side. Damon essentially has like a nervous breakdown and attacks Sir Simon, and he believes that he's the one responsible for his dreams and visions, what I thought was kind of stupid. So I'm like, you're blaming Sir Simon, but you have no suspicion of Alice. Like, I don't understand why he doesn't see this. But he does believe the Strongs are playing games with him, like they're playing mind tricks. As he starts to leave Harrenhal, he runs into Alice Rivers. She's at the Godswood, and she says, are you going to leave without bidding me goodbye? And he's like, I bid you adieu, and I'm sick of this place, and I think I'm being poisoned. And then Alice mentions the ghost of Hair in the Black cursing the land. And Damon's like, I don't care about all that. I need to get out of here. And she says that, you know, that's very much like you, right? Every time something doesn't go your way, you run. And then she rattles off Dragonstone. You ran from that. Stepstones, Pentos, Harrenhal. You know, she's privy to a lot of things that not everyone knows about him. And again, I don't understand why he's not connecting the dots here. She tells Damon, you know, he's blinded by his anger. He complains that, you know, Rhaenyra never wanted the crown. Why does she get it? And Alice says, you know, maybe the reason why Viserys gave her the crown was because she didn't want it. And in fact, Viserys himself didn't want the crown. It came to him. It's not a prize to be won. It's a burden. And then Damon is just, he's over it. He's defeated. He sits down and he asks Alice for her counsel on how to deal with the River Lords, which is a very rare moment indeed, because since when does Daemon Targaryen ask anyone for help? And she brings up House Tully. She describes it as not being the strongest or the richest house, but it is the most stable. And the vassals of Lord Grover, who is the liege lord of Riverrun, they will only listen to him. So she tells Damon, don't worry about it. Don't do anything. Just wait. And in 3 days' time, the winds will shift. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on that very telling scene.
I just feel like, why did he have to go after Strong like that? I was like, he ain't got to mess up his outfit and stuff, trying to stab him in the neck.
His outfit is expensive now.
You said what? What you say, JP?
That outfit is expensive. That's some Louis Vuitton he's wearing.
Exactly. He caused some wrinkles and stuff, and got the little baby knife up to his neck and stuff. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why? It's just, I don't understand why, like you said, Angelica, he just keep like, it doesn't matter what she does. It's like it's everybody else but her. So I don't know if it's just that he's so addicted. I don't know if she got him under a spell. I don't know what it is, but it's just like he can't see that it's her. And to ask her for help is the ultimate, like, this dude is in a chokehold. Like, he gone. To ask her for, like, the advice, because Damon doesn't do that. It's just crazy that he's just completely, like, you know, all about Alice Rivers. Okay, you know, what is she going to say? Like, he's on the way out. And I'm like, go, run, get on the dragon, go. And he's like, oh, no. Let me stop and talk to her. Let me hear what she has to say. You know, albeit now Alice does have some points now, because we all know Damon is not fit to be the ruler that he thinks he needs to be. So she has points, but it's just like for her to have that chokehold on somebody that was so mentally strong like Damon before, it's so interesting to watch play out. It's just like, well, what's the end game? What is she gonna do?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jamie.
Yeah, I still have a theory that, there's some sort of glamour, some sort of witchery that Alice is holding over Damon that completely blinds him to her being the one that's controlling and causing these fever dreams. Because he's just being really stupid towards everything that, and it just doesn't make sense. So that's the thing that I think that's probably causing him to be so drawn to her, and even to the point where he's doing very nonsensical things like asking for help. Like, when has he ever asked for help? that was actually like a 180 moment for this entire season. For this entire series, we have never ever, that was completely out of character for Daemon Targaryen to ask anybody for help, let alone a woman. Hello. So I think that's a part of, the whatever sort of control that Alice has over him, that is sort of manipulating and messing with Daemon's mind. I think that moment with Sir Simon really scared me, because I was like, that knife is a little too close to his skin. Don't hurt my man. I like Sir Simon. He's a good dude. Even though I think he still spends way more money on his wardrobe than he does on the renovations at Harrenhal. I'm just saying. It's kind of like the pastor at a church where the building fund, where's the money's going, to the building fund or the pastor? But no, I really enjoyed both of those scenes respectively. And the fact that Alice is saying, oh, just, sit and wait, the winds will shift in 3 days' time, just tells you how much control she has over the things that are happening at Harrenhal. And and how much of a role she plays in this story. So and then the vision with Viserys. Mm-hmm. Love seeing Patty. I put on Threads, I was like, okay, Patty's coming back for his Emmy, because I feel like that was stolen from him. He deserved that Emmy. I'm telling you. So maybe he'll be considered. And I'm glad, as you had mentioned, Angelica, it was the young Patty and not the Crypt Keeper version. Even though it would have been interesting to see the Crypt Keeper version, because it would have added to the more horror, ghostly element that we're experiencing in Harrenhal, to see that between like the talking head of a young Rhaenyra. It's very spooky, so it would have been kind of cool. But I just love seeing Patty. I hope we get to see more Patty moments, because I missed him. I miss him so much. So very, very powerful scene between them two.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Patty was trying to sit in that makeup chair for his cameos. He was like, nope, put on the wig. That's all I want.
Exactly.
So where we go back to Dragonstone. Rhaenyra and Jace watch as the dragon handlers sing in High Valyrian, almost like a lullaby, to lure a dragon. Sea smoke emerges, and Sir Steffan Darkland slowly approaches Sea Smoke with the encouragement of the dragon handlers, who give him instructions and commands in High Valyrian to use on the dragon. They tell him not to show any fear, and Sea Smoke seems to be going along with it. He ends up lowering his head, to allow Sir Steffan to mount him. And as Sir Steffan draws ever nearer, it does appear like Sea Smoke is, okay, I'm willing to receive you, I'm willing to serve. But suddenly he lifts his head and engulfs Sir Stefan in flames. And it is a pretty gruesome scene. And as his body burns, we see Sir Stefan take a knife to cut his throat to end his suffering. Because he had a plan. Like, if you're going to set me on fire, I'm not going to suffer. I'm just going to cut my throat. I think that was pretty G of him to be like, ah. And somehow all the other dragon handlers were able to get away. It was just Sir Stefan. So dragon fire is very precise, apparently. And as Rhaenyra is ushered away, you know, she's just stunned by this, right? But this is the risk that he was willing to take. And then we cut conveniently to Adam of Hull and Driftmark. Alan is working nearby, and he's approached by Corlys to be his first mate. Alan declines, but asks if this is this an order? This is a request. And Corlys simply says, you know, he expects Alan to report for duty. So I will stop there on that most egregious scene with poor Sir Stefan.
Man, Sea-Smoke brought the heat literally in this moment. I was just like, no. I mean, but it's like, it's a he, right? Sea-Smoke is a he?
Yeah. Yes, he's a boy.
Like it was just like so smooth though, because he like lowered and you thought it was okay. And you see Sir Stefan say, yes, I did it. And then like, just as soon as he did it, you just saw that fire like welling up. You like, oh no. And then like the poor, the people that were like, some of the people, I forgot what you said the name of the people that were singing. There was like one.
The dragon handler.
Dragon handler. Yeah. One of them was like, I think on the other side of him and got some of the heat too. Because the rest of them started up with the stick and we're trying to like get him to calm down.
Yeah.
Got God on the side. And I was like, can you imagine that being your job though? Because it's like, okay, cool, I'm looking at a dragon or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, if the dragon ain't feeling it, like all it got is these little sticks that they hold now. And trying to sing and trying to get them to be calm. So they take it too. Like if the dragon gets pissed, they taking like, you know, whatever comes their way, you know, because, you know, Rhaenyra and, you know, like the council is going to get back. So they're not going to be in the line of fire. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about like just the poor dragon handlers on the side. Poor Sir Stefan had to take himself out because it was just like the heat. It was no escaping that. You see Rhaenyra looking over and she's like, oh my God, what did I do? Like everybody just thought, everybody played into Sea-Smoke's hands and he was just turning up. He was like, no, I picked my leader. I don't like none of y'all right now. So he just went off. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. Jamie, your thoughts?
Yeah, these two scenes were great. Starting with Sir Stefan Darkland. I kind of like, I didn't know what his fate was going to be, but I knew that he wasn't going to be Sea-Smoke's dragon rider, so I didn't know how this scene was going to turn out. But man, it was kind of like, okay, touch and go. Like, okay, maybe this is going to happen. And then when Sea-Smoke kind of got freaked out and whoo, the flames went, I was like, damn, man, so close, so close. So I felt for the dude. I really did. I was just like, well, at least he went out like a G, you know, like that. He went out, you know, as an honorable man doing what he could do for the realm. So it's just, you know, it's sad because I felt like he didn't really want to die, but he did know the risk of doing what he did. And then the scene with Corlys and Alan and Adam, that was very interesting because I think back to, you know, what Corlys is going through with this loss that he's endured. I mean, he's lost a lot of family members, and I feel like he's trying to make up for this loss with the appointment of having Alan be his first shipmate, and Alan saying, well, you know, is this an order or is this a request? And he's like, all right, well, you're going to be reporting for duty, so I guess it's an order.
Yeah.
So, you know, even though it's kind of a bummer that he's being forced into this, I think that Corlys, to be fair to him, I think he's trying to keep what family he has left around him, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. I know that Alan ain't feeling it, And then you see that little shot of Adam kind of like shaking his head like, damn, bruh. But you know, I understand, given what Corliss is going through, why he's acting the way he's acting.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll add, I have a newfound respect for Tyrion Lannister, because remember in Game of Thrones, he freed Viserion and Rhaegal, and he did not burn. All he did was like, please don't kill me, and he like undid their shackles, and he got away from 2 dragons. Yeah. So I'm just saying, shout out to Tyrion, who has no trace of Targaryen blood and came out unscathed. That is a clever
Even though there was like a false narrative out there that he was fireproof because of that, and like even to this day, people still think that Targaryens are fireproof. And you guys, it's blood magic. That's the only reason why Daenerys was fireproof.
I repeat, anyway, Targaryens are not fireproof. Dany was the exception. Please stop.
Exception.
Yeah,
you remember
I keep seeing that.
Yeah, just you guys forget about that.
Yeah, I see that circulated all the time in groups now. People are like, for the 50th time, they're not fireproof. I'm like, some casual viewers, you know, I feel like they're on their phones during these episodes or something, because I'm like, how y'all missed this stuff? Anyways, I digress. So we next see Baltimore so bad. Bartimos Celtigar, Sir Bartimos, question Rhaenyra on her decision to allow Sir Stefan to attempt to bond with Seasmoke. And he's just so frantic. He's like, Seasmoke has fled Dragonstone, and Sir Stefan was a valuable Kingsguard. And he's pretty much whinging, which I've adopted that slang from the British. He's whinging so much that it annoys Rhaenyra, who slaps him like right in the mouth. And she pretty much tells him, like, this is my fault. You've forgotten how to fear me. And I was like, I know that's right, Rhaenyra. Show them who's boss. And then she ends up meeting with Massaria, and Massaria is basically trying to comfort Rhaenyra. Obviously, Rhaenyra just saw something awful happen and is blaming herself. And she's like, this was not your fault. He went willingly. And then she kind of changes the subject. She discusses the issue of the small folk, how they are hungry. They need someone to blame, which this is essentially, turning the tide for Rhaenyra. This is ammo for her to use against the Greens. And Mysteria says, it's harder to wage war abroad than to keep the peace at home. And then I'm jumping around a little bit, but this is all within Dragonstone. Jace questions Rhaenyra on why he slapped or why she slapped Lord Bartimos. And she's kind of huffing and she's like, I'm just so sick and tired of people trying to protect me. And Jace tells her, like, well, speaking of protection, I think things will go well if we bring Daemon back into the fold. And Rhaenyra's very doubtful. She's pretty much lost all faith in Daemon at this point. So I'll stop there because that was a very hilarious scene to me, to see someone get smacked like that. So over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, I like that Barnabas slap right there. When Rhaenyra pulled it back, she was pissed about it. She was like, you got one more time, because he was going in. He had followed her all the way throughout the hallways and was like, well, this happened. Like, she wasn't just there and just saw everything happen. I mean, she's got to do what she's got to do. Like you said before, it's a heavy burden being the ruler. Like they're all looking at her for answers, and she's just trying to figure out, okay, I got these dragons, I need a rider. It's not always gonna go as planned, but he's just like, well, he's thinking about it being a woman. She shouldn't have did this kind of stuff. She should have been over here fighting this and doing it this way. So I think it's about time she slapped one of them. I'm be quite honest, because every time they sit at this table, she can't ever get her thoughts together and talk without one of them being like, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you go over here? Where's Daemon? Well, Daemon's not there. He owns some kind of poison that y'all don't know about that might be lethal if he come back anyway. But which leads me kind of to your other scene with Jace. That was the first time you see him kind of like, him and his mom being on different terms, where he's kind of like, well, maybe you need to bring Daemon back. He hasn't said that before. Usually he's like, okay, well, I can go out and do this, or I know you got it. He was usually like that confidence, that mother-daughter confidence, or mother-son confidence they usually have. And he's all of a sudden like, well, go get the guy. And it's just like, that was interesting to kind of see his character change up a little bit there, where he's kind of questioning, like, I mean, I know she's my mom, but maybe I know some other stuff. Because, he's he getting a little puffy in his chest. You know, he done got some stuff handled out, so he might be kind of questioning a little bit, you know, some of her choices and everything. But yeah, and, you know, shout out to Massaria. You know, she always team small folk, and I appreciate it. Jamie's team, she brought them through. She was like, look, don't forget about Jamie's team right now. They need some food. So we got some of the solutions. So I appreciate her for that.
Underestimate my team, y'all.
Yep.
I underestimate them for real. They're a huge group of folks that what is it? Small yet mighty. Small yet mighty. So this scene was absolutely hilarious. It reminded me of Game of Thrones when Tyrion slapped Joffrey.
Yes.
And I
multiple times.
I look forward to the GIFs and the memes around this slap where we get to see it over and over and over again, as many people did when Tyrion slapped Joffrey. So yeah, I mean, look, she continues to get disrespected. And I really love the line that she says that it's my fault that you've forgotten to fear me. Because no man would be talked to the way Rhaenyra is constantly spoken to on a daily basis. And I think I've mentioned this in previous recaps that, you know, if she was a man, these men would be killed. These men would, you know, would suffer some of the worst consequences for their actions, the way they speak and disrespect Rhaenyra. So be happy that all you did was get slapped, bro, for talking to her the way you did. But all in the same, I found that this was a nice, funny moment of levity and kind of, you know, a light scene to watch in sort of the horrific things that we encounter as we watch this series. To see someone just get slapped, that was much well deserved. So good on Rhaenyra for that.
Yeah. She should have taken his tongue. So no, that's what they usually do.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you know, a king would have his throat slit, his tongue taken, you know, hung, like all of these different atrocities for the way he was speaking to her. But, you know, she slaps him. So, you know, he got bitch slapped.
Pretty much. I know that's right. So we head over back to DragonsYall. We're at the ale house. You know, Sylvie runs that, also the brothel upstairs. And, you know, they're chatting with Diana and Ulf the White about how the royals are eating well, you know, how the small folk are starving. And they also discuss, so they sympathize, how Rhaenyra was denied her seat as the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. In the market, we see Hugh's wife argue with the merchant who tells her that they have run out of food. And then now we can see a crowd of the small folk gather to voice their complaints. And then we cut to Larry's reporting on the unrest itself to Aemon, who, you know, as much as he's Mr. Swaggy, he knows everything. He doesn't even understand why the small folk are mad at them. Like, why are they not directing their anger to Rhaenyra? And Larry tells him that that is the burden of ruling. And he suggests a new hand, which I thought was an interesting choice. Like, is Sir Criston not doing a good job? And Aemon's just like, fine, you know, fetch Otto Hightower. So we next cut to a scene with Grand Maester Orwell. Actually, he actually interrupts this meeting between Aemon and Larry's, and he tells them that Aegon has regained consciousness. And I missed this on the last recap, but there was a moment towards the end of episode 4 where Alicent is by Aegon's bedside, and when she walks away, he says "mother." So, you know, he's been kind of in and out of consciousness, but this time Sir Orwell was there, or Maester Orwell was there to witness it. And everyone is pretty much shocked that Aegon is starting to recover. And Orwell was like, yeah, he's stronger than we thought. Like, yeah, he's pulling through. Aemon visits his brother. You know, at his bedside, half of his body is covered in scars. He has that whole like bandage thing going on his head. Kind of reminded me of the series when he was on the verge of death. And he asks Aegon, like, what do you remember? And Aegon says nothing. So this part kind of pissed me off, and I don't even like Aegon, but Aemon squeezes his burnt hands, causing Aegon to whimper. And he tells Aegon, you attacked Melis, which resulted in these burns and your subsequent fall. So he's feeding him the story to tell everybody else if they ever question what happened to him. So I was like, I know you're not hurting your brother like that. Like, it's bad enough that he's sitting, you know, unable to walk, half burnt, you know, I just was like, Aemon, you're doing too much now. So I'll stop there because I gave my opinion, but your thoughts on that scene with the small folk, Aemon, and then Aegon.
Yeah, I thought Aemon was gonna kill him. To be quite frank, like I can't believe all he did was squeeze his hand and was like, "Well, what do you remember?" I can't even believe he asked questions because I just got on the edge of my seat. I was like I said, Aegon has done his stuff. Ain't like, you know, you losing a lot of sleep over it, but it's like at the same time you knew it was going down between these two brothers. I definitely thought he was getting ready to stab him or do something to make it look like, you know, he wasn't really getting well and he's going to be off because he doesn't want anybody to know obviously what he did. You know, so I thought it was gonna be worse than him just squeezing him. But yeah, it definitely pissed me off because we know Aemon is in full force control of what's going on now on the green team. He's the one with all the answers, with the power, you know, and he's smarter than Aegon. So I mean, he's got everything. You know, that's who they wanted to rule before, but he's dangerous. So they can't really control what he's doing. So that's working for him. But Larry's, that scene was interesting. That was the first time he was giving his 2 cents about, you know, a position like him wanting to be the hand and all that kind of stuff. And Aemon was like, well, do you think I'm stupid? That was the first time I see anybody like push back on him and was like, nah, I need you to go find Otto. And it was just like, you saw, I forgot who was sitting on the Green Council on the other side, was laughing, like had this little smirk on his face.
Oh, I forgot dude's name, but yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he was like smirking, like, "Oh, you thought it was gonna be you," but I just thought that was so funny. Now I'm still keeping hope alive, Jamie. He could have which magical powers that we don't know about, but that was the first time that somebody was like, "Yo, let me back up," because you know he did mention later on he mentions his birth story, like what happened to him. So I don't know, we don't know, but that was the first time that somebody pushed off and was like, "Yeah, you can go find Otto for me. You can do that. Thank you."
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah. The small folk conversation, I love the seeds that are being planted. Like this is good story build up to how the small folk are getting really restless and really upset about how they're being treated by the royals. They're not getting fed. Sylvie's like, look, they're eating good and we're getting scraps and we're not even getting food at all. So the fact that we're getting all of this information and, you know, we'll see how all of that plays out. So just wanted to comment on that scene. So the scene with Aemon and Larry's was just like chef's finger kiss, because it was the first time that we saw Larry's have this look of defeat, because he's been, you know, operating with this chessboard and moving all of the pieces. And so far he's been pretty good with the way he's been playing the game, but I feel like this was a calculated fail on his part with having Aemon become the king regent and Aemon telling him Ryan, as you had said, you know, do you think I'm stupid, when he made that remark, and Larry's just like, no. And then when he ends up saying, well, I want, you know, Otto to be the hand, which that kind of shocked me. I was like, okay, I did not see that coming. Larry's looked really disappointed because at first it sounded as if he was going to appoint Larry as the hand. He was like, oh, well, I'd be honored. He's like, no, I want you to look for the hand, which would be Otto. Oh, okay. So, yeah, it was a really interesting scene to watch unfold between those two. And then the scene with Aegon and Aemon, I mean, I'm not surprised that he went in there feeding him this information and hurting his brother. I mean, he did try to kill his brother. So that wasn't surprising. I just thought he was going to try to finish the job. And if it wasn't for Maester Orwell walking in, I feel like he probably would have tried to, because it seemed like he was, you know, kind of grabbing him to the point where he was trying to hurt him, and I was like,
a pillow, perhaps.
So yeah, suffocate him or something. Because I think Maester Orwell saved his life.
Good guy. He's a good guy.
Yep.
So yeah, Aegon needs to count his blessings. He definitely needs to count his blessings. But yeah, Aemon, he's evil. He is an evil kid. Allison has there is I'll bring this up really quick. Someone posted, there's a Facebook group called House of the Dragon memes, and someone had posted that, that scene, that shot of Allison looking over at Aemon where she looks really suspect. It was in the last episode 5. When he had the cat's paw dagger and she's like looking at him like, okay. So in that shot, someone put she drank moon tea when she realized she drank moon tea with the wrong child.
That's not right.
Oh man.
Well, I'll just say this, because I've said this before. Larry's has been successful because he's been dealing with dummies or easily influenced people, and Aemon ain't that type of person. So I think for the first time in a long time, he's met someone that's not falling for that silver tongue. Hence, oh, you think I'm stupid? So I was like, okay, you ain't got it like you think you do. Time to readjust, sir. But yeah,
recalibrate.
Yeah, but yeah, recalibrate, exactly. He was like with a robot or something. It's like, oh, something's not working. Recalibrating. So we end up going to the Vale, which is a welcome sight for me. I love anytime we leave Dragonstone or Driftmark because I'm sick of the same locations. And we see Rhaena walking with Joffrey. Rhaena discovers that the earth and even local livestock have been scorched by a dragon. And she was stunned because she was led to believe that there are no dragons in the Vale. And as a book reader, this scene really disappointed me. And I guess we'll talk about it at the end of this recap. But I was like, no. And I'll explain why. Later, Jane tells Rhaena that Prince Reggio has agreed to foster Viserys II, which is Rhaenyra's youngest son, and also Rhaena. So you get to leave the Vale because apparently Rhaena was miserable there. And she notices that Rhaena isn't really too happy about what's going on. And Rhaena turns to her and says, there's a dragon in the Vale. Like, you misled us. And Jane simply says, like, yeah, there's a dragon here. It's large. It's formidable. But hey, it's wild. So she's double dipping. She just got 2 dragons and she has a wild dragon surrounding the area. So I thought that was pretty telling. And then we'll wrap up this section with a scene with Alan at Driftmark. He's shaving his head. And you can see that he's trying to hide white stubble that is growing through. His Valyrian heritage is showing. And Adam seems to want to take advantage of Corlys's wealth now that his brother's been offered this position. But Alan is not trying to be known as the bastard son of Corlys, so he's not a fan. And then on the nearby shoreline, we see a fisherman notice dark ships that have the banners of House Targaryen, meaning a red dragon on a black field, which is Rhaenyra's house sigil. So I don't know if that shoreline is near Dragonstone, near Driftmark, or near King's Landing, but I feel like it might be closer to King's Landing. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on the scene with Rhaena in the Vale and Alan and Adam back in Driftmark.
Yeah, I hold off on Rhaena with in the Vale because I just had a lot of questions, and I feel like you about to get to it at the end because I thought it turned her into a little detective that we hadn't got to see. We've never seen Rhaena kind of push back like, oh, I'm not going to follow these rules. So I really want to know what's going on there. So I can't wait to hear your explanation on that. As far as I guess the plan of like Rhaenyra and Mysaria, like with the little ships coming in, I thought that was so well played. And I like how they had like the one ship and then they widen the lens out so you can see all of them coming in. Which I just thought, like, because I heard them talking about this plan, right? Like, they know the small folks are important, but you don't really know exactly like how it's all coming together. So I thought the way they pulled it off was really smooth, with just like the one little ship kind of coming in. You see a ton of ships coming in. It's really smart. I just feel like the guys are not thinking on this level that some of the women are bringing it right now. So I love the way that was revealed, and just to see like what comes next. But yeah, I love that plan coming together.
Yeah, Jane, she is something else. It's like, girl, you really thirsty for these dragons, like, and then you knew that you had this wild dragon the whole time, yet you're complaining about these baby dragons that you have. Like, what more do you want? So it's like, okay, I have a dragon. It's wild. Okay, well, deal with the dragons that you have with the little ones. So she's getting on my nerves now. But I'm glad Raina is hip to her hypocrisy. So that's going to, hopefully that we'll see that exposed to the rest of the Targaryens in the future episodes to come. As far as the two brothers, I really liked this revelation between Alan and Adam, specifically with Alan and his hair. I saw that little white stubble and I was like, okay, somebody's trying to hide their Targaryen heritage here. Because I did find it interesting. I mean, you know, he was bald, and that's not something that's really interesting, but there was something that was just, you know, I don't know. I had some suspicions in my mind about his look.
Baldness.
And now, yeah, baldness. There was some suspicions in my mind about that. Knowing his ancestry. So now that we know, I like the fact that we're clued in to the fact that he's got the white stubble. But now I want to know, why doesn't Alan, or Adam rather, I always get these two guys' names mixed up every time we do these recaps. Why does Adam not have Targaryen hair? And their brothers?
It's just genetics. So like Rhaenyra's sons, Jace and Joffrey, Jace, Joffrey, and Luke, they all had dark hair, but their mother was a Targaryen.
But that's because they're Strongs.
Well, right. So it's half and half, right? So they are half Targaryen, and the Targaryen gene is recessive, and they keep that alive through incest, right? So most Targaryens do have silver hair, or Velaryons, or people of old Velaria, but that explains it, because their father's a Strong, but their mother's a Targaryen. And then Rhaenys in the books, her mother is a Baratheon. On the show, she's a Baratheon too, but on the show they have her with silver hair. In the book, she actually had dark hair. And then in the case of the twins, you know, one inherited the Velaryon or old Valyrian features of the silver hair. And then in Adam's case, he inherited his mother's genes with the darker hair. So it just depends on, I guess, the luck of the draw. Not everyone is going to have silver hair if they belong to the blood of old Valyria.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But those were great scenes.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And someone had pointed out that the actress that plays Jane was the lead on Raised by Wolves, which was on Max, HBO Max, their streaming service. And then the actor that plays Alan, I don't have their names on hand, he played Father, who was the other lead. So it's nice to see the two people from Raised by Wolves on the same show. And on Raised by Wolves, Alan had hair. So it's nice to see them too. They're not reunited, but seeing mother and father on House of the Dragon, I thought that was pretty cool. And she has a wig on the show. She has very short hair on the other show. So I was highly confused, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's them. So anyways, for fans of that show, those are your people. So we're back at Dragonstone. Master Orwell reports Aegon is doing better. He's regaining consciousness more. He's speaking a bit more. And Alicent is encouraged by this news. Orwell then tells Alicent that House Beesbury has raised arms against House Hightower in retribution for Lord Beesbury's death back in season 1. If you remember, Sir Criston killed him at the small council because he was one of the few council members that was against Aegon taking the throne ahead of Rhaenyra. Alicent, ends up speaking to Gwen about her father, Otto. Has she heard from him? She hasn't heard any news. And he pretty much says, like, when he wants to reach out, he's going to reach out. He's able to take care of himself. And then Alicent wonders what life would have been like had Otto brought Gwen to the Red Keep instead of her. And Gwen says, it would have made sense. I was the oldest male. But Alicent mentions he was only 8 years old at the time. She then asks after her youngest, Daron, who is fostered in Old Town. Apparently he stopped writing to her or his letters are becoming less and less. And Gwen describes him as a stalwart young man. And then he also describes him as kind, which is not something her other sons, Aegon and Aemon, have inherited. And then he mentions that he has to, end up going with Sir Criston back to Old Town. But it appears that Alicent is reassured that Daron isn't ruined like the rest of her siblings. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on that small scene because I thought that was pretty important.
Yeah, I like Gwen. I think he's always a good mix up, and I always like how they put that they always have to put him in the scene where you see Cole over there looking like all sheepish, like somebody need to talk to him after all the dirt he's done. So I love how it's always like Alicent in the middle of both of them and then kind of like shooting eyes and stuff like that at each other. But yeah, I thought their brother-sister conversation was much needed. You kind of see her, reflecting on like being a mom. And it was almost like she was like, well, maybe I just need to back off completely. Or is this my take two, if my other son, because I didn't take my sons right now, they don't listen to me. I got one that, might not recover, so I just kind of see her reflecting as a mother, like on her decisions, like what you don't get to see her do all the time. I feel like she's kind of just sulking, bouncing from thing to thing. So just to kind of hear her say, like, was it me? Did I mess up? Is it the area that they were born in? What's going on? Like nobody's listening. So I thought that was it's just like this episode was very reflective for her. So Olivia played those scenes very well. I like the way they're kind of, really making her sulk in, like we said earlier, the decision she's made, up until like from last season, like every decision she's made is kind of coming back now. And you have to like Jamie brought out, either you're going to feel bad for her or you're like, hey, if you coming from the book world or you coming from before, you're like, girl, I mean, you did what you did. Like you didn't raise your sons how they should have been on this side. So, it's coming to get you. But it was just interesting to see her say like, oh man, what about my other son? Like, what would happen there? Like, what's he doing there? And he's staying away from the drama. So, hey, at least shout out to her having one decent son somewhere, one child that's not caught up in this foolishness somewhere, hopefully doing okay and doing what he's got to do. But yeah, I definitely appreciated that scene. And I'm glad she didn't go over to Cole anymore. Cause I'm like, girl, you need to cut that off. Cause that is not going to help your situation right now.
Okay. JB.
Yeah. I mean, I had a feeling that Criston Cole was going to suffer some kind of consequences for killing Lord Beesbury, because the House Beesbury is a pretty important house. So that was a really bad move for him to have done that back in season 1. So good on them for raising their arms against House Hightower. So we'll see how that plays out. And that scene with Alicent and Gwen, yeah, that was it really opens up this moment that we see with Daron not being in this web of lies and deceit that is within the confines of Alicent's family. Like, had he had been there, he might be a part of the evil and all of the terrible things that these kids have been doing over the years. He might have been a part of that. And because he was sent to ward, he's actually a kind, decent human being. So it just kind of goes to show the environment that she has raised her kids in, that she's allowed her kids to perpetuate. And it's tragic. I don't know. It's something that the feeling and the emotions I have is more sympathy than anything else, because I feel bad for them. I don't feel bad enough to be like, you guys deserve what you get. You don't deserve what you get, because they do. But it's just sad and tragic, because we ultimately know, and just in the Game of Thrones universe and all of these kind of stories, what happens when bad people do bad things. It doesn't end well. So I'm glad that Daron is in a safe space and a good space. I hope we get to see him. We probably won't see him this season, but I hope we get to see him in season 3. So yeah.
We should. I read that he's going to appear in season 3. He hasn't been cast yet, but because he's been mentioned so much, they can't exactly not cast the boy. He's actually around the same age as Jace in the book, so we'll see. So we end up seeing Larry's having, I think you described it, Jamie, as a heart-to-heart with Aegon about their disabilities, right? Aegon can't walk. Half of his body is burned. Larry's has a club foot. He describes how Larry's describes that his own father was so desperate to heal him that he turned to witchery. So that just makes me think, Alice? And he tells Aegon that he will not be able to walk again and he will never be the same. It kind of reminds me of Tyrion's speech about bastards and broken things when he was trying to encourage Bran in the original series. He tells Aegon, people are going to pity him. Your life is going to change now. And he tells him that Aemond is ruling in his place and that his life is in danger. So finally afraid, right? Aegon asks Larys for his help. And I think that's twofold, right? Help me navigate this world in this new body, right? In this new form. Also help me try not to get killed. Protect me from my brother. And then we end up cutting to Daemon, who has another dream. So speaking of brothers, Daemon, who has another dream of Viserys. This time he's crying over his dead wife, Aemma. So this goes back to season 1 when she lost the baby. Oh, she was C-sectioned against her will and then died, and then the baby was lost. And so Viserys, I know, sorry, I'm going to keep moving because I don't want to think about it. So Viserys is just like weeping, he's just so broken. His wife is gone. And for once, right, I don't believe Daemon comforted him in real time back in season 1, but in this dream, Daemon comforts his grieving brother, and he lets Viserys cry and weep into his arms. And this dream is interrupted by Sir Simon Strong announcing the death of Lord Grover. And now young Oscar Tully is the new Lord of River Run. Simon also mentions that Alice tried to use her craft to help Lord Grover survive, but there was nothing to be done. And Daemon is visibly relieved. So one could only assume that Alice was not helping when she was attending to Lord Grover. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on the scene between Larys and Aegon, and then Daemon and Viserys.
Yeah, I usually get nervous every time Larry starts like getting real close and, start trying to give his little whispers and talk about stuff. But I think it was an important, interesting scene to just talk about, if you take it into the real world a little bit, just having like disabilities, having those challenges, and how do you push forward? Do you just kind of wallow in what you got, or how do you push forward through it? Because Aegon, he's going to need some help. Like we talked about before. I thought Aemon was going to take him out. I didn't think it was just going to be no like squeeze his hand and going about your business. Like, what did you see? Like, I thought he was going to be a goner, even though he's already, fought to this point to get this far. I thought he wasn't going to make it. So it was just interesting to see somebody, Larry's again. I mean, he's working it. He's working it, probably pissed off he's not the hand. So now he's got like something that maybe he can work with. Now, this is going to be interesting because Aegon is going through a lot. He's not really mobile right now. It's going to be interesting to see what this story is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What else are you bringing in? What are you filling his head with? Why do you want to help him? So I just like how this scene kind of brought up more questions, but at the same time, it's encouraging you to fight. So, you know, you always get those little like signature moments within the show that I think are really valuable. And then I'm trying to, I just totally had a brain fart because I went on layers of what your second say was.
Viserys and Daemon's dream.
Oh yeah, because I'm tired of Daemon being on this poison and just doing what he's doing. But shout out to seeing Viserys again. We won't go down into the scene because it was just hard. But yeah, Emma, it was good to see Daemon like finally being back there where he should have been in the first place. That was the whole point. You know, Viserys was always like, why is my brother not here? Like, I have your back. I'm always talking, you know, to help you. I'm always trying to push you forward and you can never have my back. It's always about the crown and what was passed up for you. So I thought it was important this episode that as a brother, he was having to go back, you know, whether it be on poison, he's listening to Allison too much, but he's having to go back and reflect. Like, I wasn't there for my brother. Everything he did for me, I wasn't there. You know, when he needed me, I was just always chasing that crown. So it was just interesting to see him have to go back and relive all those ghosts.
Yeah, I agree. Jamie?
Well, you guys know how I feel about Matthew Needham.
Yes, that is your business.
This is my favorite scene in the entire episode. This was just such a beautiful scene and performance by Matthew. It really speaks to the character of Larry's. We get a lot of, here's my favorite term, character development. From Larry's here, because it speaks to his openness about his disability, why he's made the choices that he's made, how he feels about his family and their reactions to his disability. And it makes me think that maybe he chooses the power moves that he makes, that he chooses, because he has control over that. Those are the things he has control over, as opposed to maybe he doesn't have control over, you know, his disability. He doesn't have control over the use of his feet, over his legs. So yeah, I loved hearing him articulate that to Aegon, who is now dealing with this new disability. And as he's counseling him, as he's advising him, as he's coaching him, he's really speaking to himself. He's really, you know, having this moment of catharsis and just speaking out loud of his own demons that he's dealing with. So even though he's doing all of this wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, you know, probably he's letting out a lot of the issues of his past. And we see all of that in full. We just see that on a bigger scale in this scene. So it was great. I still think he's a green seer, but maybe, you know, maybe he is just this human guy with a disability, and he uses this role of Master of Whisperers as a way to have power over something where, you know, in other places, in other aspects of his life, he doesn't have power over things. And then with the scene with Daemon and having this lucid fever dream over Viserys and Emma, that was really tough to just see that, because I remember that first episode was just, it still triggers me to this day. So it's just so hard. But I think the part that really struck me was when, you know, Simon mentions that Lord Grover has now passed, which, as we remember, when Daemon spoke to his grandson and wanted him gone and was like, well, you know, do what you got to do to get rid of him. When Simon mentions that to him, his first reaction is tears. And I just thought that was a very compelling moment for me to see Daemon react in that way. I didn't expect that kind of emotion. So I'm just noticing we're seeing sort of a weakening of Daemon's character here, because him, you know, kind of breaking down and just sort of weeping at the news of Lord Grover's death, as opposed to, yes, okay, now let's proceed, you know, like celebrating it, or even just being nonchalant about it. But to weep, that I thought was, that wasn't something I was expecting. So I don't know if that's a result of Alice's witchery. I don't know what they call it other than witchery. I don't know if it's a result of the magic spell, I guess the spell that she has over him, or if there's some sort of opening or breakdown in his psyche, or he's just sort of this unveiling of his emotions that's sort of coming to a head. But I that was pretty compelling. So yeah.
I interpret it as he was just very much finally helping his brother grieve and feeling that kinship and feeling that loss, and then he snapped out of it by Sir Simon. So those emotions are still there even though he's no longer with the series. Then he hears this news that he's been waiting on. I think that was a relief. So I think the relief of Lord Grover's death, and now they kind of have the Riverlands back at their disposal, and the emotional weight of the previous sequence with him dreaming combined just made him cry. I think he going through it. But I agree. It's all due to Alice. And I'll add some evidence towards your green seer or supernatural theory for Larry's. Supposedly, Alice is the bastard of Sir Lionel Strong. So that would make Alice Larry's half sister.
Oh.
So, and then he had mentioned there was witchery used to heal his club foot, or to attempt to heal his club foot. So I'm giving you some points, Jamie. that there could be a supernatural element there, but I still stand that he's just really smart. But yeah, so we'll move on. He could be both. Yes, two things can be true at the same time. So on the shoreline, we're back at Driftmark. Adam sees sea smoke flying overhead, and you can see that sea smoke is over it. He's restless. He's agitated. His last encounter with humans wasn't so great, and he kind of like hovers and gets lower and lower and appears to, like, I want to say swan dive towards Adam, and Adam takes off running. He ends up going through the woods, but sea smoke crashes through the trees and corners him against like a hill, and we see the two of them face to face. And I was very I spent like a lot of time looking at Adam's face, because at first there was a moment of fear, like pure fear. But if we remember in earlier episodes, he was fascinated by sea smoke. And so I see his face change from fear to resolve. So I'm just like, I don't know, he might be that guy. We shall see. And then we end up cutting to Dragonstone. Massaria reports to Rhaenyra that her ships were able to dock close to King's Landing, serving as a warning to the Greens. That's that earlier scene that I had mentioned. Rhaenyra doesn't really seem too excited about this news. You know, she's still concerned about losing Daemon, you know, and she has said something along the lines of, you know, he was someone who wanted to own me, but didn't want to be owned in return. She's lost him. She's lost Caraxes. She has no army. And now even her own son is doubting her, right? And I think Jace's doubt comes from seeing what happened to Sir Stefan, right? Their whole plan that came together, it's falling apart. So she feels like she has no one. And Massaria says, "You have me." Massaria then goes on to explain to Rhaenyra how she ended up getting that scar across her neck. Her father was physically abusive. Not only did he hurt her physically, like hit her, but he violated her body as well. He also left a scar not just on her neck, but on her womb. She could no longer have children. So if we go back to season 1, when Daemon claimed that he impregnated her, that was a clear lie. Massaria knew it because she can't have kids. And Massaria ends up telling Rhaenyra she was meant to be queen because she's one of the first people that's ever treated her like an equal. And the two embrace, and I was not expecting this scene at all. They end up pulling away from each other and then kissing passionately for like a really long time. I was like, oh, that wasn't in the book.
I was wondering. I was like, was that in the book?
My question.
I was like, oh, not them getting a book reader. So yeah, they was, they've obviously bonded a lot over the last couple episodes. Masaria is Rhaenyra's confidant, and they're sick of men and have turned to each other. But they're interrupted by her Queen's Guard, who tell her that Sea Smoke has a new rider. They cannot tell who the new rider is. I feel like us as the audience know. And Rhaenyra kind of wonders, like, well, who is it? They're like, we can't see it. And then she wonders, is it one of the Greens? So they ask her if they should summon the Black Council, and Rhaenyra says nothing. She like dips. She gets up out of there. She gets on her dragon Cyrex, and then she rides off. And it appears to be on the hunt for Sea Smoke to kind of figure out who Sea Smoke's new rider is. And that's how the episode ends. So lots of thoughts. But I'll turn it over to you guys before we wrap. Because I definitely have some gripes from this episode, even though it was amazing. So, Ryan, your thoughts on those last few scenes?
Well, I guess I'll go back and start off with Adam and Sea Smoke. I remember, like, when Jamie popped that picture up, just seeing Sea Smoke hover around all the time and Adam looking up. You were always kind of thinking, like, because they always talk about how the dragons have their personalities, right? Was Sea Smoke like always circling, like, hey, I want that guy, or I know that, something about Adam. I was just wondering if it's like that intuitive that he was picking up something even before in the past, because we always saw him looking up at Sea Smoke. But yeah, when Adam was in the forest and Sea Smoke comes around, that's like a whole Jurassic Park moment. I was scared. Like, I thought he had let up, and when he came back around to the front, I was like, what do you do in that moment? But, just stare at the face of Adam, like you were saying, Angelica, and it goes from fear to like, all of a sudden it's this calmness, like they understand, and you're like, okay, like we know from the books, but it's at the same moment you're like, okay, Sea Smoke sees something in him. He's brave, he's not backing down. He's like, well, he's got me cornered, so what am I gonna do? So it was just interesting to see Sea Smoke really go for his owner. Like, y'all try to put me with somebody else, or who we think, maybe it's not, but who we think, it's good to see him like really go after him. Like, hey, there's something about Adam that I like. So he held it together way better than me, because I would have been like, I got to go. I don't know where I was supposed to be going, but when he cornered me in the forest like that, I would have been in trouble. But and then to Masaria and Rhaenyra, shout out to the creative team, because I was going to ask you that. I was like, was the kiss in the book? Because I did not expect that to go down like that, but they were in that moment where it was, the women empowerment. They both could see each other that the men weren't seeing before. Rhaenyra's bringing up, like, I feel like Daemon is not there anymore. She feels like he's turned on her, basically. If he comes back, she's like, I don't know what he's going to do. Like, everybody keeps saying, go get Daemon, but I don't know what he's going to do if he comes back. And for Masaria to finally share her story of the scar and everything. So, but yeah, I was like, I started getting close to my, like, computer screen looking like, I was like, now what's going on here? What they get ready to do here? Because it was like that back off moment and that slow, like, zoom in. And then how far it went, and then the King's Guard came in, and I was just like, did they see that? Like, is that gonna be a thing? Like, did he interrupt like right at the moment? So it was just so much going on in that scene. But it's like you understood it, but at the same time, I love the shock value. Who knows what's coming out of it? If Daemon gets off the drugs he's on, whatever poison he's on, to come back, is that a thing? Is that a thing he notices that he gets pissed off about? So I don't know, it's just like, it opens up a door to other stuff, but it's representation. It's, it's all the drama and stuff that we need, that we love about House of Dragon, that we get to explore more. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Great action scene with Adam and Sea Smoke. I always love seeing scenes with dragons. That's the one thing about House of the Dragon. We got to always give the dragons their screen time. So that was a wonderful action scene with Sea Smoke going through the woods. And I was getting scared for Adam for that moment. And then he's cornered. And it kind of reminded me of some scenes like in Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? But yeah, very, very clever use of the line. Oh yeah, I've just thought about the word clever in that scene in Jurassic Park where the guy says "clever girl" and then he dies.
And then she eats him.
No, clever use of the term where you said that he goes from what was it that you said? He
fear to resolve.
Oh, yeah. Fear to resolve. I like that because yeah, that's exactly kind of that is the expression that he has on his face in that scene. So, and the show has been showing, they've been almost a little heavy-handed.
They've been spoon-feeding it practically.
They really have. They've been spoon-feeding this relationship with Adam and Sea Smoke through the whole season. So it's obvious that there's a kinship between these two that we'll see develop, and we'll see where this goes. But yeah, from the moments in Driftmark where we see Adam looking up at Sea Smoke, and there was a scene earlier in this episode, right before or right after rather, when Sea Smoke ended Sir Stephen Darkley's life tragically. The scene cuts directly to Adam.
Yep.
So it's like you guys are y'all are heavy-handed with this. You really are. So Mysaria and Rhaenyra, my goodness, this
sitting in a tree.
Sitting in a tree. KISSING. And if it wasn't for that Queen's Guard walking in, it would have went way further. And let me tell you,
it would have went down. Literally.
It really was. Yeah, because I have Wikipedia knowledge of the House of Dragons. Wikipedia Thrones, absolutely. Yeah. So I do know that Rhaenyra is bisexual in the books, and I think she had a relationship with Laena, actually. So there is some truth to her sexuality. She just didn't hook up with Mysaria. So probably book readers will be upset about who she hooked up with, but I think it's, this relationship makes sense because you kind of alluded to it. It's like the men have treated them like trash, and these two women understand each other, I think, more than other women to women relationships on the series. And these two women understand each other because they've both been wronged terribly by Daemon. So they're like, I get you. I understand you. I need love in my life. So I can understand. Let's make this happen. And I can understand this mutual relationship starting. So good on Rhaenyra. Good on Mysaria. Do what you got to do. But yeah, this was a great episode. I loved every bit of it. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. And
I did.
I mean, for me, honestly, House of the Dragon, the episodes keep getting better and better. I don't care what anybody says. Like, this whole filler episode narrative that people are putting out about episode 5, I call BS.
Kick rocks.
Kick rocks. Because these episodes are planting seeds for for potential tentpole events to come, and I can't wait to see how that goes down. So, yeah,
I'm with you. I think their coupling is natural progression based off what we've watched so far. It wasn't like a shock, or I think people would call that like queer baiting. I don't think that was the case at all. They did a good job of building up their potential romance. Yeah, I just wonder what Daemon's going to feel like. My wife and my ex-girlfriend are hooking up. Like, what do we do there?
I think he's too high on the werewood pace to even care. I really don't. I don't even know if he's going to care. I don't know. But we'll see how he reacts. But
so I did enjoy this episode. I'm gonna make it quick about my gripe. I fear that Nettles will not be a part of this show. Because I mentioned livestock burnt, that looked like a sheep, and Sheep Stealer was Nettles' dragon. And at the, based on the book, I'm not trying to spoil, but based on the book, if Nettles is not included, Nettles ends up in the Vale with Sheepstealer, right? So the fact that they have a big wild dragon that likes to eat sheep in the Vale currently tells me that Sheepstealer is the dragon in question. Rhaena's storyline appears to be fleshed out to take over Nettles' arc. And then the change to make Mysaria and Rhaenyra lovers, I feel like that wraps up some of the questions that we had on why it didn't make sense for Rhaena to be Nettles. So the father-daughter relationship looks like it's going to be the case here. And I feel like there was a whole jealousy factor. I feel like that's actually going to be Daemon jealous of Mysaria and Rhaenyra's relationship. And that was going to cause a wedge. They're already fighting, but I feel like that'll make it worse. So I am disappointed if this is the case, because all the other dragons seem to have been cast, have appeared. We already had somewhat of a sowing with Adam, likely Ryan Seasmoke. I just feel like we're not going to see Nettles, and that hurts my feelings. So that is why, while I love this episode, I was kind of sad, because it just kind of pointed towards Rhaena will be Nettles. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Wow. That breaks my heart too. Gosh, I hope that's not true. I hope that was a beautiful breakdown, but I hope everything you said absolutely does not compute to anything that
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, really, seriously. I hope so too, because that would be severely disappointing. I mean, I can't think of any other arc that they would go with. I don't know how that ties into the relationship with but you said because of Daemon being jealous.
Yeah, they kind of flipped who is jealous of whom by coupling Mysaria and Rhaenyra versus having Nettles in the mix. So I feel like they're going to use that conflict versus the Nettles-Daemon conflict. So we'll see. We'll see.
So but this means Rhaenyra might mean that Rhaenyra can ride a dragon.
I feel like Rhaena's. I feel like they're definitely setting up for Rhaena. Yeah, I think they're setting up for Rhaena to claim a dragon, and I feel like the dragon that Rhaena is going to claim is Sheepstealer.
Because Nettles was.
Yeah, that's Nettles' dragon.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be the fans gonna be pissed, but I mean, it's hard.
No, I would say the book readers will be pissed.
I
don't know. I've never used that word before. I don't think the TV folks will be upset about it because they're probably not familiar with Nettles. I think us, the Blurred community, will be, because she's the only Black canon character in Fire and Blood. But yeah, the Blurred community and book readers will definitely be upset about this.
Well, I just thought about
casual TV viewers don't really know who Nettles is.
They're not gonna care.
They're kind of playing it against each other, right? Because we just want more beautiful melanin on the show. But Rhaena now has, if that is her arc, she gets to kind of branch out a little bit more than we haven't seen her before.
They could have branched her out without giving her Nettles' arc. That's just how I feel, right? Because that's what
I'm saying. Like I agree with you. Like they're kind of combating it together, right? Like if you're a fan and you're watching the show, you're like, I want to see Rhaena more. They're about to turn her to the storyline, but then you're like, well, where's Nettles? You said we were getting something with Nettles, so what are we doing? So they're kind of taking us down that struggle bus, but it's gonna be rough.
And they'll also add, because there was another podcast that had mentioned that if Nettles doesn't show up, it takes away from the fact that this is the only character that may or may not have old Valyrian blood and kind of used her own wits and was low-born and didn't have this like magical or noble element to her. So it's a two-way. It's twofold. That if she doesn't come around, I'm gonna be mad. I don't know if I'm gonna get over it. I love the show.
And I hope that if this ends up being the case and they go in that direction, I would hope that the showrunner and the writers, specifically Ryan Condal, let's just keep it a buck, that he explains why they decided to not have her in the universe, why they decided not to have her in the story. Because like you said, she's got a great story arc. It shows that there's a character that is not of Valyrian descent, that is lowborn, that can show that, you know, she can ride a dragon, and there's a different story arc there. And then there's the fact that she is the only Black canon character in House of Blood, in Fire and Blood, you know, that, you know, wasn't race bent for the show, that wasn't any changes made, that we get to see in this universe that is essentially now being erased for the TV adaptation. So why? Because correct me if I'm mistaken, I don't think that they've changed, other than the Valyrian race, I don't think that they've changed any characters or erased any characters from the show.
Yeah, they haven't done much of that. And I'll also add that George had originally wanted the Valyrians to be Black when he wrote the books. And that was one of the inspirations for Ryan as well, to race bend them. So, you know, it's not a stretch for them to be Black on the show. So, you know, I'm just going to hope against all hope that Nettle shows up. And if she doesn't, like, as much as I love the show, I'm going to complain and I'm going to tweet about it.
I don't think we'll be alone in that. And again, I hope that the folks, you know, the creators behind the scenes explain why they decided to take that creative decision if they decide to go down that path. Like, what is your reasoning behind it? You know,
because she is Explain yourself, because she's beloved. Because the podcast I mentioned is like 2 white guys, and they were like, if Nettles doesn't show up, we riot, because she's just a fan favorite character. So, because she just has probably one of the most unique and interesting storylines arcs on in the book, I should say. So I'm gonna get off my high horse. I'm gonna just hush, but stay tuned. We shall see. But I'm gonna be upset, and I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna pray to the 7. We're gonna pray to the old gods and the new, that Nettles will appear in future seasons of House of the Dragon. But in the meantime, listen, if you happen to stumble onto this video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe, and please tune in next week as we again do another deep dive into an episode of House of the Dragon. Follow us on Twitter and on Threads. We use the hashtag DragonsYall. And thanks for watching us, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
The Black Girl Nerds podcast is produced by Jamie Broadnax. The opening theme song to our show is written and performed by Samus. Various instrumentals are performed by Samus, Sky Blue, and Shubzilla. You can find various episodes of the Black Girl Nerds podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Audio Boom, Google Play Music, and Spotify.